Morning, everyone. One more topic from your essay paper we'll take a look at today. And the topic for today is topic number 7. A smile is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. But before I look at the topic, the interpretation, the content, first briefly again the basics. 8 paragraph essay divided into 4 points, 4 parts. Number 1, the introduction, where you give a preview of your essay, help the examiner understand that your perspective, your take on the essay is going to be correct. Second part is body paragraph number 1. Most crucially for reflective essays, this is where you provide your interpretation of the topic. Body paragraph number 2 to 6, which is 5 more paragraphs. Here what you do? Provide different perspectives, different viewpoints, different dimensions on that topic. And finally your conclusion, where you provide one final reinforcement of the topic. But this we've discussed many times in the past. So without delay, let me get to this part over here. A smile is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. What does this mean? When we say a smile is a chosen vehicle for all ambiguities, it means that for any ambiguity, any trouble, any problem, any adversity, challenge that you're facing, the best way that you can deal with it is a smile. What do you mean by a smile? That when you're faced with a problem, with a challenge, you should face it optimistically, you should face it positively, and you should be determined to try and overcome that adversity. Why should we do that? Because even if you don't smile, the problem will still exist. There's a very simple saying in English that worry does not empty tomorrow of its problems, it empties today of its strength. When you have a problem, you can either worry about it or you can smile about it. It would be better to smile. That is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. But that's your broad understanding. More specifically, how do I interpret a topic like this? Simple topic though. 3 questions again we ask for the right interpretation, and this interpretation you will write in body paragraph number 1. First question we ask, what do we mean by saying that a smile is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities? That whenever we have to face troubles, problems, adversities, setbacks, we should face them with a smile. What does smile signify over here? That we should face these problems with confidence, with determination, with optimism. If you look at a class full of students, there might be many students who don't clear the prelims. Many students are not confident about their mains. But even if you believe that your performance in an exam is not good, you have 2 options. Number 1, you can take stress and worry. Or number 2, you can deal with the situation with optimism. Either way, the problem is not going to dissolve. It's not going to vanish. Raising the second question here, why should we smile when we are faced with troubles, when we are faced with ambiguities? Because even if you don't smile, the troubles are not going to vanish. On the other hand, if you do smile, what does that do? That enables us to focus on the solution rather than to keep worrying about the problem. When I am optimistic, when I am determined, when I have confidence, it enables me to deal with the problem far better than to not smile, rather not having that optimism. Third, how do we bring this smile when we are facing difficulties, when we are facing problems? How do I bring a smile on my face? By strengthening our resolve, by being more determined. How do I develop that determination? By accepting that troubles, problems, challenges are inevitable. No matter who you are, a student preparing for this exam, a bureaucrat working in this country, a very successful businessman, a very successful cricketer, a very successful person in the film industry, you could even be the chief minister of a state or the prime minister of the country. Every single person will have to face challenges. Challenges, troubles, problems are inevitable. But while they're inevitable, you have 2 options. Number 1, you can worry about them, you can sulk about them, or you can try to overcome them. And that is why we say, by accepting that they are inevitable and to overcome them by inculcating a good, a strong, a positive set of values. That is why we say that you should smile. It's the best, it's a chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. This is your interpretation. Now, to write the essay, you need some content for your introduction or for the conclusion. In the introduction, what examples can we use? Some of these we've used in one of the earlier essays also that we discussed, which was that a ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are for. Similarly, now why am I repeating those examples here? To help you understand that once you have the right content that is available, a reasonable amount of content. This is what I told you in the first essay video that we had, that once you have the right content, you've collected, you've selected, you've organized the right content, the same content can be used very easily, very comfortably across multiple topics. For example, for a topic like this, first person whose example I'll take is a person called Marwan Attapattu. Again, and his example I've discussed in detail earlier, briefly. He is a person who scores 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 in 3 successive tests. And this takes him a period of 6 years. Over a period of 6 years, he'll be able to make only 1 run in Test cricket, but later on will go on to captain Sri Lanka. Why? Because when he was facing those ambiguities, those troubles, he could have buckled under, he could have worried about it, he could have been completely demoralized, or with optimism and determination could have set about to improve his game. Similarly, a very famous example from India is the Battle of Saragadi. In the Battle of Saragadi, you have 24 soldiers, 24 Indian Sikh soldiers of the British Army fighting against, now this is a little debatable, fighting against 10,000 or 12,000 Afghans. And yet, now, when you know that you're 24 of you and there are 12,000 people or 10,000 people in front of you, this is not even, I would not even say ambiguity, I would say this is almost imminent extermination, almost imminent defeat. And yet, how did they face the situation? With valor, with courage, with a smile on their faces, with optimism, determination, fortitude. Which is why even today, the Battle of Saragadi remains one of the, the most fundamental examples for what bravery, courage, sacrifice, and going beyond the call of duty would signify. Right? Because a smile is a chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. Another example you can give here is Abhimanyu. Despite knowing that when he enters the Chakravyuh, there's a high probability he will not return, with a smile on his face, optimistically and courageously, he enters the battle formation. And that is why even today he is remembered for the supreme sacrifice that he made. In the same vein is a person called Second Lieutenant Arun Khetarpal. For a long time, India's youngest Paramveer Chakra medal winner. During the Battle of 1971, when the Indian Army was asked to retreat from a certain point, Arun Khetarpal was trying to retreat, but when he was trying to retreat, the chain in his tank broke. He had 2 options. Number 1, he could abandon his tank and retreat with the others, or number 2, he could stay there and provide cover, provide a safety for the Indian tanks that were retreating. He chose to do the latter, and for this, posthumously, he was awarded the Paramveer Chakra. In that ambiguity, it was very easy for him to start worrying, to start complaining, to start cribbing, to get demoralized. What did he choose to do? He chose to remain optimistic and determined to win the battle for his country. Another person who's, and again, a very appropriate example here is this lady called J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling, again, she gets divorced. She has a small child to take care of. She is not employed. She's on state aid and she does not know what her future will be. And yet, in fact, J.K. Rowling had very famously written that at that stage of her life, one of the prominent sources of happiness for her was the books that she was writing. She says that writing was therapeutic. The writing gave me a sense of hope, gave me a sense of positivity that the future could bring something for me also. This is why we say that a smile, you have 2 options. You can buckle under, or number 2, you can stand up and try to resolve that problem, try to overcome that problem. Now, this is some content that you can write in your introduction, but you also have 5 body paragraphs to write. In these 5 body paragraphs, what do you write about? Now, there is a certain ambiguity, there's a certain problem that we are facing. There's something that is needed to address that ambiguity, overcome that problem, and of course, an example that you can quote for it. One of the most prominent ambiguities that most people in life face is what we call a pessimism bias. What is a pessimism bias? That I overestimate the chances that something wrong, something negative will happen to me. In this case, how does a smile become the vehicle for these ambiguities? Smile now takes the form of focusing not on the results, but by focusing on the efforts. Example that you can quote here is a person called Marwan Attapattu. Similarly, number 2, another problem that people face, another ambiguity that many people have is the bystander effect. These I will not explain in detail because we've already covered them in earlier videos. What is the bystander effect very briefly? That very often my behavior, my reaction to a particular situation is determined by the responses of others around me. If most people around me are responding to it in a certain manner, high probability I will also do the same. And here, what is the remedy? What is needed to overcome this ambiguity? The realization of interdependence. That we are all dependent upon each other. Therefore, with courage, with determination, regardless of what people around you are doing, at least you try to do the right thing. And here the example that we can quote is of the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. When, I'm sure you already know, you certainly know about this disaster, but when the disaster happened, there was a lot of nuclear contamination and radiation levels were very high. It was important to clean the area. At that point in time, a small organization called the Skilled Veteran Corps took it upon themselves to volunteer to clean up the radiation. Who were these people? This was a group of 200 people and all of them were elderly. And they volunteered. Why did they volunteer? They volunteered with the simple understanding that someone or the other, there is an ambiguity, there is a trouble, there is a catastrophe, someone has to go and clean it up. Whoever cleans because of the radiation will not live for long. But these 200 people, and that's why we say that Japan probably is an outstanding country, outstanding civilization. These 200 people said that we are elderly, we've lived a long enough life, all of us have some morbidity or the other, and we have a very short life expectancy left ahead of us. So they said that if we clean it up, at least many younger people, their lives could be saved in the process. And in that ambiguity, in that trouble, what are they doing? They are showing that determination, that courage, that willingness to make a sacrifice. Proving again that a smile is the best vehicle, is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. Similarly, example, Chanda Zaveri we are talking about, this we used earlier also, the ostrich effect. What is the ambiguity? That very often we know that there are problems, there are troubles around us, but we choose to completely ignore them. We remain oblivious to them. Here what is needed? To focus on creating SMART goals. What are SMART goals? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time bound. And that here now comes the example of Chanda Zaveri. And what is Chanda Zaveri's example? Number one, what is the goal? Number one, finish your education. And number two, start your own business. In that ambiguity, when she left Calcutta, when she left her home, I hope by now, I've mentioned her example 2-3 times, I hope you've done a little bit of reading on her. At the age of 17, she left her house in Calcutta, leaving her family behind. She had one pair of diamond earrings. Selling those earrings, she had to buy a ticket, get to the US, provide for her lodging, provide for her food, then get employment, then start working, save money, and then complete her education. But in all that ambiguity, all the troubles that she was facing, what did she do? She kept a smile on her face. Again emphasizing that it is the chosen vehicle for any form of ambiguity. Another problem that we face, in fact, especially students, I would not even say students at your age, but students especially in school and in college in India, in fact, primarily in schools. An ambiguity that students face is excessive competition and the constant fear, the constant pressure of a rat race. No matter where you are in India, one of the most dreaded words, the most dreaded two words for a student are board exams. Excessive competition. Now here, how do you deal with that ambiguity? Very simply, through positivity and holistic well-being. But it's easy to say to a child that you should have positivity. You should look at the larger picture. Doesn't matter if you don't get 95% in your boards, even 87% is good enough. But how do you enable the child to be able to develop that positivity, display that positivity? And for that, what the Delhi government, what the Maharashtra government, what the UP government also have introduced in the schools is the happiness curriculum. And the happiness curriculum specifically focuses on addressing this terrible competition, the terrible pressure that this competition creates on students. As a result of this, many students now have started performing better, not only in their interpersonal relationships, but even in their academics. One more paragraph if you want to do right here. An ambiguity that a lot of people have is the inability to manage stress. When they are placed in difficult circumstances, most people don't have the ability to deal with it. Here what is needed? More self-awareness. Being aware of your own self. And here the example you can give is a very famous Austrian psychologist by the name of Viktor Frankel. Viktor Frankl, first I'll have to tell you, was a Jew. He was imprisoned by the Nazis during the Second World War along with his family. In front of his eyes, he saw his father, his mother, his wife, and his brother die in the concentration camp. Yet, Viktor Frankl did not die. Viktor Frankl realized that the difference between a person who died in these camps and a person who survived these camps was only that the people who survived had identified for themselves a purpose in life. What did he make his purpose in life? His purpose in life became to identify what exactly was the distinction between these two groups. And despite all what is the ambiguity over here? In front of you on a daily basis, you are seeing death, you're seeing misery, you're seeing suffering, you're seeing starvation. And yet he keeps a smile on his face. How does he keep a smile on his face? By establishing for himself very clearly a purpose and then sticking to achieving that purpose. Again emphasizing, again reinforcing that a smile is the chosen vehicle for all ambiguities. When you're faced with an ambiguity, when you're faced with a problem or trouble and adversity, you cannot change it. The only thing that you can do is to fight it with optimism, with determination. That optimism and determination, in one word, is what we represent, what we symbolize with that smile. This is one more topic. The remaining topics we'll take up now in the next video. Thank you.